Alright, for today's critical thought, we're continuing our discussion on how roguelikes became more accessible to a greater audience. And we're going to be discussing the use of progressive difficulty, or how you turn a difficulty curve into a difficulty mountain. One of the biggest hurdles around roguelike games for such a long time has been the overwhelming difficulty of them. The very fact that you can start a game and die within the very first 5 to 10 minutes and there was nothing you could do about it. And of course, again, as you all know, permadeath being a major factor. And one of the things that we've been seeing lately as a way of allowing both expert and new players a chance to experience a roguelike is this idea of progressive difficulty. And what I mean by that is essentially you are tiering or layering your difficulty up as the player completes a game to unlock higher and more challenging variants. Now, of course, the footage that you see over there is of Slay the Spire, and probably the most recognizable example of this. But there have been other cases such as Monster Train, Dead Cells, and Hades as well. Now, again, the philosophy of this is that no matter how many levels of layers you have, the base layer, layer 0, should be winnable or beatable by anyone who learns these systems. This is the gimme level once you've learned how to play this game. And that is your baseline experience. As you go up, you're introducing different challenges that are going to alter or in some way, shape, or form increase the difficulty. Now, here's the big point. This is not just about stat increases. This is about all the little ways you can kind of remove the safety net of playing your game. Some popular examples would be raising the cost of purchasing items in shops, having the players start with trash cards or dead cards in their deck, making it harder to repair weapons. Anything that you can tweak the systems surrounding your game to make it harder will work here. And again, one of the more popular options, of course, is just pure on stat increases. Enemies do more damage. Bosses have more health. Enemies are faster. Anything along those lines. Now, the important thing to understand why this is different from traditional difficulty is that, again, you are layering these modifiers on. It is not the same as saying, here's easy mode, here's normal mode, here's hard mode, and you're getting 3 different experiences. Instead, you're taking that base experience and you are continuing to tweak that. And that when you get to the top or max level of your progressive difficulty, that should be a completely different experience in terms of difficulty and challenge compared to base layer. And most players who are going to play a roguelike, they're not making it to max level difficulty. I think I got stuck around Ascension 10, I want to say maybe 9 or 10 in Slay the Spire. Right now I'm on Covenant level 20 in Monster Train. And again, this is the beauty of the system, is that it allows everyone who will learn your game to have a solid chance of at least seeing the ending of it. And then the progressive difficulty becomes both a wall for new players to not be overwhelmed and a challenge for expert players to overcome. Because many people who play these games will push to see how far they can climb this kind of difficulty system, while other people, once they hit that one level that just stops them, they're going to say, I'm done, I can't go any further. And that is perfectly alright to have. The challenge, when it comes to these systems, is again the balancing of them. Because, like we said, this is not about pure stat increasing. You are layering them on, so that the difficulty modifier you introduce at level 4 is still going to be there when you get to level 10, 12, 15, however high you want to go. And when you have all these different layers working in concert with each other, it can lead to a lot of difficulty spikes or unintentional frustration for a new player or for just any player. Because if you introduce something so damning at level 4, it can make it even impossible or borderline impossible when you get to level 7 or anything higher than that. And this also creates a very hard challenge for a developer when it comes to balancing your levels. Because again, because these are being layered up, it means that changing one changes all the ones on top of that one as well. So if, for example, you discover that at level 3, the modifier is what is causing so much frustration as you get higher, guess what? From 4 and above, you're going to have to rebalance those as well. And it's why the system is very difficult to do right. And we could argue, as we're going to talk about in a minute, that there hasn't been a perfect system yet. Hades does get close in this regard. What they do is that as you go up, every time you beat the game, in order to unlock more rewards, you have to raise the difficulty. And the player chooses what modifiers they want to have on. Let's say, for instance, in order to get a next reward, they need to reach difficulty level 6. In order to get to difficulty level 6, they could turn on enemies do 10% more damage, and gold rewards are reduced by 20%. Or they could simply turn on every stage now has a 5-minute timer that if you don't clear, you're going to be punished for it. And again, the difficulties are not just pure stat increases. It's about all the little ways that you can make this experience harder without bumping up or lowering the stats of things involved. And that is very important, because when you start raising or changing the inherent stats of things, it is affecting every aspect of your game. And this is a major issue when it comes to progressive difficulty, and what we're going to talk about next. But first, a quick little break. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. Progressive difficulty works, again, by the very fact that you are allowing players to see how far they can climb while still providing a balanced experience at layer 0. The issue, however, is that when you are layering various factors on top of each other on a set experience, it can lead to very spiky changes or just removing some of the aspects that make your game fun or enjoyable in the first place. And this is an issue that I find with both Monster Train, Slay the Spire, and with some of the other games that we've played. Again, at layer 0, those games are amazing and well balanced. And part of that is the ability for the player to have multiple ways of winning. Because of the variety of tactics and the player's own knowledge, it allows you to come up with crazy builds that allow you to win, even if they are not the most optimal or best strategy. The problem with progressive difficulty is that as you go up and the game becomes more tightly wound in terms of its modifiers and the difficulty curve, those strategies go away. And this can make these games very frustrating to play when you realize that you are going to lose and there is not anything you could have done differently, no amount of skill, nothing on your end that could have helped you. If the game doesn't give you the options you need to win, you're done. And it's something that happens in just about every game that makes use of progressive difficulty. Because again, as you're raising the difficulty of your game up, you are removing the various safety nets or abilities for players to properly adapt or pivot if there's a problem. And with Monster Train here, one of the issues the game has is that because of how the factions play out, there are certain cards or options that are just completely game breaking. Every faction has them. If you don't get them, it is possible to kind of hobble or, stitch together an all-powerful build based on your two combinations of factions, and that's one of the brilliant aspects of the design. However, when you get to Ascension, I think it's around 10, maybe 15, one of those two markers, the modifiers become very restrictive. One, you get more and more trash cards in your deck, fattening it out and making it hard to build an optimized strategy. Second, the stats of the enemies and bosses go up. And like I said in the last part, this is very big and you cannot take this lightly when it comes from a balance standpoint. Think about it like this. Let's say at layer 0, I have an attack that does 3 points of damage, and enemies have 8 points of health. That means that I need to hit that enemy 3 times with this attack to kill it. Doesn't sound too bad. If, for instance, through the layering system, now an enemy has 15 points of health, now I have to hit them 5 times with the same attack, all the while they're able to hit me or get around or do more damage. The strategy itself has not changed. It literally cannot change without rebalancing the cards. But its overall viability and utility have gone down. And again, the overpowered builds in any one of these games do not change. They're going to be as overpowered on layer 0 as they're going to be at whatever your peak is. The problem is everything that's not optimal. And this is where that frustration sets in. With Monster Train and Slay the Spire and Hades and so on, I know that realistically speaking, if I don't have the start or the burgeoning or the early birth of an amazing build within the first 5 to 10 minutes, the first floor of Slay the Spire, the first 2 or 3 levels of Monster Train, that run will most likely end in failure. And part of the reason for that is how tempo works in these games. If you have a horrible beginning, most likely you're going to have a horrible end. And again, there is not anything the player can do to get around this. This is not a case of getting good. This is a case of essentially the game saying, you're going to lose this time. You're going to lose this time. Okay, you're going to win this time. And now you're going to lose the next 10 times. And some of you may think, well, what if we just change the balance on the player's side as you go up in the difficulty or the progressive difficulty? And unfortunately, that doesn't work either. Because, like we've said, the purpose of the system is that you are layering these systems on top of each other. Something that exists at layer 0 is still going to be there at layer 15. And if you bump or buff various options, it can lead to your game being completely imbalanced for several reasons. One, if something is just game-breakingly powerful at layer 20, then that's going to be super game-breakingly powerful at layer 0. Conversely, if something is so amazing at layer 0 and it loses its viability as you go up, the player's going to feel like they're being cheated by the design. That I like this incredible build, but now I can't use it because it just won't work. And it is very tough, again, because for one thing, there aren't as many games that use a progressive difficulty right now. There have been plenty of Slay the Spire clones, and I'm sure there's going to be Monster Train clones and Hades clones as well. But it's still a relatively new form, or relatively new philosophy in terms of difficulty design. And I'm going to throw this to you watching this right now. What do you think, or do you have any thoughts in terms of solutions for this problem? How do you balance something when you are continuing to layer on top of it? The only thing that comes to my mind, again, is to not engage in stat changes as you go up in terms of the progressive difficulty. And again, the reason why developers do that is that it is the most blatant and easy way of adding difficulty. Again, if an enemy does 5 points of damage, making them do 15 points of damage makes them more dangerous. I know, it's surprising. But without balancing things on the player's side, it leads to frustration. It's the same thing that happens if you play Atomicrops at year 10. When enemies now have more health, they're faster, there's invincible projectiles shooting all across the map at you, and it's just not possible to win easily unless, of course, you get those overpowered items. And again, there are going to be people, and I'm sure a few of you are probably going to comment down below telling me that Covenant level 25 in Slay the Spire, Monster Train is easy. Year 10 of Atomicrops, I beat that on my first try. What's wrong with you? And again, this is the nature of RNG. That if you do, when you get to max level of progressive difficulty, get that super overpowered build, you're going to win. Because guess what? It is an overpowered build for a reason. There are people who most likely rushed to Covenant level 25 in Monster Train, and I know exactly how they did that. They figure out what's the best faction composition, and that's all they played at. So their chance of getting the best build with the best factions is a lot easier. If you're a masochist like me and you play random, it's going to be a little harder to get to. But again, and this is the final point that needs to be clarified, your game should be winnable at every layer of your difficulty. The final layer of your progressive difficulty should not be impossible. And I know that this sounds very stupid to say, but I'm sure somebody's thinking, oh, we'll just, at level 25, every enemy does 8 points more damage and the player's health goes down to 1. It doesn't work like that. And like we've said, this is a very effective way of not only padding out your difficulty and your progression, but opening up your game to more people. Because somebody should be able to enjoy and get a fully finished experience at layer 0. And if they want to go up, that option is available to them. If they want to stop, then guess what? The game is done. And they have that finished experience. If they want to push themselves, then the game is more than willing to tweak things and make things more interesting. And some of the best examples of this is when you tweak something that it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, and then it just comes back to bite you at the worst possible time. And Monster Train is really good in this. 2 of the Ascension, or 2 of the progressive difficulty layers, introduce the concept that any unit that you place on the top floor comes in immediately dazed, which means they cannot act on the first turn they're placed. It doesn't sound that big of a deal, but the first time that a major threat makes it to floor 3 and you try to place units up there defended, and then you realize, oh wait, they can't do anything because of this difficulty, you're going to just, slap yourself in the face there. And then another one they introduced that a random floor has one less capacity. And again, it doesn't sound that big of a deal. But if your strategy hinges on placing very meaty units down, and that one capacity prevents you from making your perfect floor composition, it will hurt you, and it will hurt a lot when that happens. And again, that is the beauty of this kind of system, is that it's not just about making things harder through stats. It's about making them harder by changing how somebody approaches your game. And the sky is the limit, because as a developer, you should be thinking of all the ways that your game can be made harder, and you can turn that into progressive difficulty. Again, though, keeping in mind that they must all be balanced concurrently with each other. So, to end things on, for those of you watching this, besides some of the examples that we've mentioned here, can you think of other games that make use of progressive difficulty in a way that worked? And can you think of games that used it that ended up making the game harder or more frustrating than it needs to be? Let me know in the comments below. And if you are interested in learning more about roguelike design, keep in mind that I'm currently working on my third book. That will be a deep dive into roguelike design and philosophy. Anyone who donates $15 or more by the end of August 30th, 2020, will earn an acknowledgement in that book. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments or send me a message. That's going to do it for this video. Again, check out our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.